Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimesh, Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting each episode by saying thank you. I feel so very blessed with this podcast. I started it really with the objective of simplifying spirituality, guiding people on their journey. I had no clue how far I was going to go, and all the messages we receive and all the gratitude. I feel so very grateful. So thank you for trusting us to guide you on your journey. That truly lifts my soul. Thank you. Just to introduce me, I'm an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer. I'm a podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. I love what I get to do. I get to guide people in so many different ways to remove their layers, to truly become their authentic selves, to shine their light, to really truly activate and understand they're the gift. And I love what I get to do. And it really is a soul calling. And I feel blessed that I get to do it every day. And this podcast wouldn't be where it is today without my beautiful and stunning co-host, introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, and now published author, Stacey Brown. Stace, over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be back. My name is Stacey. I am an intuitive. I do readings for people from all around the world. I'm an Akashic record reader and a spiritual coach and mentor, and a recently published author. My book, Journey to Soul Center, Discovering the Gift of Surrender, is available on Amazon and Audible. Looking forward to this episode today.
Yay, so am I. So this week we're going to be talking about the dark night of the soul. I feel like we've kind of had a series of episodes recently between me and Stacey that kind of connected. We talked about the role of trauma in spiritual awakening. We talked about inner child healing and kind of what comes with that. We also talked about spiritual bypass and kind of doing the shadow work. And this week we're talking about the dark night of the soul. And you know, on the spiritual journey, everything's kind of connected, right? Nothing's separate. And you know, you could say experiencing trauma is the same thing as experiencing the dark night of the soul. It kind of is all connected. It's we're a soul having a human experience. But sometimes we experience something at such a deep level that it kind of jolts our spiritual journey and it kind of accelerates it. And it is a deep transformational journey. And both me and Stacey will talk about what we've been through. But a lot of people talk about the dark night of soul. And it's like when you're going through something, oh, maybe I'm going through the dark night of soul. And maybe you are. I feel like a lot of people right now are going through dark night of souls, rebirth, reset, whatever you want to call it. Because after the dark night of soul comes the rebirth, right? It comes a new version of you. So where are you on that journey? Only you can tell. And dark night of the soul can be a very short period, but it can also last a period of time. And what does a dark night of soul feel like? It's deep emotional pain. It's losing your identity, not being sure of who you are. It's like shedding every part of you, feeling disconnected from your guides. Kind of feeling overwhelmed with the uncertainty, and just so much is happening in your world, and everything feels like it's just breaking down. There's just so many things that this image that you created of yourself just starts to break down, and people in your life disappear, and you have so much inner conflict. You don't feel like you belong. And it is painful. But also, as parts of it, as you're going through, you get these little moments of insight. But ultimately, it's a call for transformation. A deep knowing that who you are in this life, what you do, and all that is no longer sustainable. For me, the dark night of the soul is one of the deepest spiritual activities we can go through. It is a calling. And it's like our life goes in blocks. And sometimes we come to a block, and it's a reset, rebirth, where we need to go through this whole dark night of the soul, this whole identity crisis, to shed the layers, to truly transform, to really shine a light in the way that it's meant to be. And Stacey, I've known you for a few years now, and I've definitely experienced you going through a dark night of the soul. I'll talk about mine and my experiences, but when I say to you, What's the dark night of the soul, and how does it feel to you? What would you say?
I would say that it is a time where your whole world is rocked, where everything feels uncertain and overwhelming, and the not knowing can really be challenging. Um, I've absolutely been through a dark night of the soul, and it can be a very lonely place as well.
Yeah, I mean, the lonely thing is an interesting aspect, right? Yeah, it does. It's definitely a period where you feel disconnected from everything. Interesting enough, I feel like our guides are there for us even more, but we don't feel it. So it's a disconnect from your human self, and it's also a disconnect from your spiritual self. And it's just so if this resonates, um, I guess it's good to remind you that this is something that is a fated experience, i.e., you're meant to go through this transformation. And I guess it's a good reminder that the universe, your guides, is not going to give you anything you can't handle. So I have an experience that you feel so alone, you feel like you're never going to get through it, but you are being supported. But it has to be a deep experience because you're stripping away all your identities, all your false identities, all your ego. It just, yeah. I mean, what are the signs? Like I said, it's deep. Are you feeling disconnected? Are you feeling like you're not yourself? Do you feel like you're out of your body? Do you feel disconnected, like all your friends are disappearing and you don't feel connected to the spiritual realm? Do you feel disconnected from purpose, self, spirit? Are you facing kind of your shadow aspects, unresolved trauma? And it's such a big shift, and it's really interesting. It's like when you're going through it, you can't see the wood for the trees. It feels just like so intense, and it's so dark, and it's like you can't see the light. Stacey, I'd love for you to, I know we talked about it before, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but can you talk about your dark night experience? And, do you feel you've been through it? Do you feel you're going through a shift now? Anything that's in your heart you want to share?
I feel like I have been through it, and I feel like in some ways I'm going through it again, like shedding another layer. I don't believe we go through just one awakening or one awakening crisis or one circumstance. We're constantly growing and evolving. And for a lot of us, that can mean going through more than one dark night. And for me, the last several years have been that. And in this season, there's just so much unknown that it feels like I'm peeling away another layer. It feels like there's more happening for me right now. And I don't think I'm disconnected spiritually, but I feel a lot of the other symptoms that you listed. And so I would say I'm in it again.
It's interesting. As humans, we love to give labels to things, right? Dark night of the soul, rebirth, spiritual awakening. I mean, I agree. For me, the awakening experience is a lifetime experience. It's not a one-time thing. But sure, you get spurts, right? It's like when you're growing up, you get growth spurts. Um, are the labels important? I do feel like in some way we're all going through a shift, and my best advice in terms of, if you feel like this, if you resonate with this, and it's really easy for me to say, but it's to let go. Awareness is always the first step in kind of anything you're going through spiritually. And so being aware that you're going through a dark night of the soul, you're going through a shift, really understanding and asking the question, well, hold on, what is my lesson here? What am I learning? What am I here to learn? Knowing that the disconnection from purpose, self, and spirit is all part of it. Facing your shadow self, is whether it's your trauma, whether it's your inner child. This is why we did the episodes before. It's really understanding and asking those questions and becoming aware of what are you going through, accepting that you have to let go of the old version of you. And typically, dark night of the soul can be triggered by something emotional that happens in your world. Sometimes you need to go through a deep, painful experience to go through the rebirth. And I'll talk a little bit about mine. I mean, I've had a couple too, but I'll talk about the one that kind of accelerated my spiritual journey. And it was, well, probably 18, 19 years ago. I was very much focused on becoming successful in the corporate world. A friend of mine thought I was being too successful and did some dark magic on me. And I've talked about this a few times on this podcast, but what I've tended to talk about was how I got through it. But going through the 2 years of, she did this dark magic on me because I was being too successful. I was, had a nice car and all the rest of it. And she was jealous. But so she did like a fire ceremony in Indian dark magic, which led for me to be out of work for 2 years. Nearly losing my home, being in a dark space where really I felt I couldn't do anything. I didn't really started or accelerated the spiritual part of the journey, so I didn't necessarily have the tools to understand what I was going through. And it's interesting now, I focus more on the soul contract I had and the spiritual awakening and kind of the rebirth I went through afterwards. But the pain that I went through for those 2 years is important. But at the same time, I also know that the universe was holding my space. As an example, it just so happened to me before this started, my sister moved in with me from who she used to live in an area called Leicester. She moved in, she got a job in London, she moved in with me. And honestly, if she wasn't there and, helping me out also financially, I would have probably lost my home and in a whole different set of circumstances. So it's also important to recognize that you're also being protected, and it's recognizing the people around you who are there to hold your space, even though you feel disconnected. I got through that period. I was guided to connect with a religious leader who actually a friend wanted to go and see, and I just went with her. She's the one that said, as soon as she saw me, somebody's done something to you. And as soon as she said that, I got an image of what had been said, what had been done. She couldn't fix it, but she could send off to India to fix it. So I went through this whole process, and I make it sound super quick. But at the time, I had no knowledge of dark magic. So when you get told this, I went through a period of, well, hold on, do I really believe this? And I went to go and see somebody else to get it confirmed. And then, sure, eventually I sent off to India to get it fixed. And ironically, they did a fire ceremony. They sent me the ashes in a casket. Within a few days of that, I got offered a directorial role. But again, I went through a process of, how can somebody I trusted do this, right? Why, what did I do to this person that would make it do, and kind of, but I now recognize I had a soul contract with her. Because after going through that opened me up spiritually. That opened me up to a phase of knowing that there's so much more happening around me that that I wouldn't even be aware. I wasn't even aware of. I was ignorant to. And sure, for a while I was looking for people to fix me, to kind of send me on a course, and I'm sure we've all been there, right? But I recognize I had a soul contract with that friend. I mean, friend is, I guess, in inverted commas, but I know I had a soul contract with her to awaken me. But it's easy for me to recognize that now, right? It's easy for me to focus on the benefit and the joy afterwards. And it's not like I'm ignoring the pain, because I've done lots of healing on it. But it's also recognizing why I went through it, and this is why that level of awareness. So if you're going through something, changing your question and asking, how is it serving you? Why would your soul contract this experience? What does your expansion look like? Starting to ask different questions. What that does, it increases your awareness, and it kind of allows you to start to have breakthroughs. So Stacey, you kind of talked about, multiple darkness, the dark night of the soul, and I do feel there's, I don't know if there's levels, but the deep rebirth that we have to go through when we go through a deep dark night of the soul. I'd love for you to talk about, what did it feel like for you? And if I were to ask you, what did you gain from it? I'd love for you to share.
I feel like it can be such a lengthy process, because I feel like I went through this awakening process through my divorce and leaving my home and all of that. But then I feel like now I'm peeling away another layer as I navigate the decisions with what I'm doing now currently, and where I'm going to live and what that's going to look like. And it just feels very isolating. It is a very isolating process, and it can feel very dark and depressing at times. It can feel scary. It can feel overwhelming. But the difference for me between that and being down or depressed, conventionally speaking, is there's a feeling that there's something more happening. There's just this sensation that there's something more. And I cling to that. I just cling to that idea that there's something more, that I'm going through this for some sort of purpose or lesson or whatever it is. And it's a time where I get really prayerful as well. Like, just guide me through this, walk me through it, show me what I'm supposed to learn. It can be a real test of my faith too.
Oh, 100% is a test of your faith, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It challenges you, every aspect of you. It's it does have an impact on your human world, as you're talking about, right? There's definitely a human aspect to it, which is, for me, for example, it changed the trajectory of my life. I always thought I was going to lead a program life, right? Go down this corporate path, earn loads of money, get married, have kids, and have what you may call a good life. But that whole experience opening up to spirituality, and I wouldn't be the healer I am today if I hadn't been through it. And Stace, I've seen what you've gone through over the last few years, and the healer that you are today, and the light that you shine. You wouldn't be shining it if you hadn't gone through the darkness that you have. And again, it's easy to say. It is easier to see when you get through the other side. So if anybody feels, and if this resonates with somebody as what you're going through right now, I'm sending you so much love, so much light. Knowing this is a phase, that this too shall pass. But what's the catalyst for breakthrough? What do you do if you're going through this? And again, it sounds, I'm very conscious. Sometimes I make it sound easy, but surrendering to the process definitely accelerates your growth through this. Like I said, understanding the pain, the loss, and uncertainty, that it is serving you and accepting it's serving you, recognizing that you're going through this and knowing that you're meant to go through it and it's part of your soul's journey, and the importance of divine timing, and just looking it through the dots of kind of what happened before this experience. Did you get some messages? Did you get some nudges? Maybe you, and just recognizing, just seeing all the dots in the journey that led you to this place and navigating the darkness. Is really interesting how when we're going through something, we stop doing the things that were working for us. And when you're going through darkness, so even getting out of bed sometimes is really hard. And doing things like we're going to talk about self-care and grounding. Doing things like that feels like hard because you're going against the grain. But actually having a strong self-care routine, meditating, time in nature, grounding, it's so important during this time. It allows you to connect with you. Journaling, meditating, open your Akashic records, right? Reaching out, you're getting some healing done. It's a powerful time to ask for help. Certainly we have a beautiful spiritual mentorship program that guides people through this and sometimes takes people through it, right? The mentorship program we do should come with a health warning, because what it does, it really kind of guides you to release the layers of who you are to truly become authentically you. But picking somebody that you have a soul contract with to help and guide you, whether that's us or whether that's somebody else, but it's how do people make you feel, not how do you think, but also reaching, kind of creating space and maybe soul connections for people to hold your space. And the reason we did the episode last week on spiritual bypassing is sometimes that's what we do. We look to try and be positive when we're going through something dark and something. We try and be, we got to be positive. No, you've got to embrace what you're going through. So if you didn't listen to that episode, please go back and listen to it. Because spiritual bypassing, when you're getting the signals to do some work, if you continue to avoid it, the messages would get even louder and even stronger. So I'm sure Stacey's too. We're sending you so much love if you're going through it. So Stacey, what's your advice to somebody that's potentially going through this? Whole conversation resonates with them. They're going through something deep. I guess my first advice would do go back and listen to the last 3 episodes that me and Stacey have done together, which is around trauma, inner child, and spiritual bypassing. And even actually the one we did an episode with Sangeeta around grief. All of that is connected. So there's no like one silver bullet, but all of those things are connected. So, but Stace, what would you advise? What would you advise people in terms of if they're going through what we're saying and how we describe it? Because words are always easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we're describing, what would be your advice? What did you do? What anything you did that kind of get you through? Anything you want to share that's in your heart?
My first piece of advice is to get support in whatever way feels right to you. Get support, because otherwise it can be so isolating and so depressing and so hard to see through it and so hard to take action. But if you have somebody in your corner supporting you, then you're not in it alone. And hopefully that person or those people can hold you accountable to what you need to do and help you to formulate the patterns that are going to help you through it. Because I think all of these things sound great, journaling, meditating, etc., when we're in a good space. But when we're in that dark space, it can feel like an uphill battle. And sometimes it takes somebody coming alongside of you to help you make that journey a little bit easier and help you tweak your routine and maintain until the breakthrough comes. Because sometimes you can get the help and support and still be in the midst of the mess. And it can take time to work through it. So I would also say another piece of advice is be patient with yourself. So get support, be patient with yourself. because it can be very frustrating when you want to just snap out of it, have the answers, move on, whatever you want to say, and it's not happening. That can be very frustrating. But then the last one is document the journey, because you never know what kind of a roadmap you're creating from sharing your experiences. And even if you just write them down and keep them to yourself for right now, having a space to process what's going on is really important. And so that would be like, those would be my 3 pieces of advice for anybody going through it. And I hope that helps, because I know what it's like to go through it. And I know what it's like to struggle with the motivation to get out of bed. And I know what it's like to not know what's coming next and desperately want to know what's coming next, and like all of those things. But I also know that through some of those dark times, I've had some of my most powerful breakthroughs.
Putting you on the spot again, Stacey, I'd love for you to talk about one of those breakthroughs. Anything that you kind of, what came through after at least a phase of your dark night of the soul?
Well, I think after everything happened with my son 6 years ago, that was like, we went through a trauma in the family, and my son tried to take his own life. And through that experience, I had some of the most profound spiritual encounters I'll probably ever have. And through that, I chose to give up my career in the beauty industry and dedicate my life to helping people in a different way. And it was a huge breakthrough for me, because I've been through so many painful experiences in my life. And to be able to turn that pain into purpose feels really significant. Really, really significant.
I love it. Thank you as always for sharing. And yeah, it's just one of the things you said was really important, and that is it's recognizing that you are being supported when you're going through this. And this is one of the really hard aspects, is knowing that you are going through this for a reason and knowing that you'll get through it. But if you listen to this episode, then the universe does want you to know that you're being supported. And whether it's us or whether it's somebody else that's in your world, maybe you're ready to allow support to come in. And it may come in so many different forms. It may come in the form of a friend. It may come in the form of working with mentors. It may come in the form of, family member, whatever it may do. But you have to be open to, one, recognizing that you're going through something and it's expanding you, and you are. And it's also acknowledging, because when I went through this, is certainly what I experienced, is there was moments of clarity. And maybe they weren't often enough, but it's recognizing that you are getting nudges, you are getting those little moments, and maybe they come through this episode, who knows? But also, I believe everything we go through for 3 reasons, right? One is, so if you're going through a dark night of soul, it is definitely partly to release the karma that you brought into this life, personal or ancestral. It's also what your soul's here to experience. So if you Stacey's point, kind of activated the healer in her, right? So if you're here to do something, and if you experience the dark night of soul, it is part of your awakening. It's part of, to activate things in you that are deep, dark, and need to be activated and brought to the surface. And because you've got programming you've been through in this world that you're holding on to, you have to go through something deep to really shake up your world, to shed the layers, to truly shine your light. So the second thing is release your soul experience. And third is, if you're activating something in you, maybe it is part of your training for whatever's coming next. So recognizing that what you're going through is there for a reason. When you get through the other side, you do. I mean, Stacey was talking about it, right? New levels of awareness, clarity, and peace. You start to understand why you went through what you went through. And there is an aspect where sometimes you forget the dark stuff, right? Maybe not all of it, but some of it. And that's when the rebirth happens, right? It's when you go through and you become a truer, more aligned version of you. But it's important to integrate everything you've been through. And, maybe whatever you've been through allows you to support others. But to Stacey's point, you get through the dark night of soul, it's not like your healing's not going to continue. It's not like other stuff's not going to come up. It's not like, other similar experiences, other rebirths, other, maybe not as intense, but other versions of dark night of soul. And again, it's I can see it in me, but actually it's so interesting how it's easier to see in others. Like, for example, I can see energetically that when me and Stace met, for somehow we had a soul contract for us to meet at the time we were meant to meet. And when she went through that version of her dark night of soul, there was me and others that were around to kind of hold her space, and as she went through it. And I feel like I came into your world, Stace, when you'd been through the dark night of soul and you were starting to come through the other side. So you were going through your rebirth purpose, and this is why, telling the listeners to recognize when somebody's coming into your world, maybe they're there to hold your space as you kind of be reborn. How does that feel to you, Stacey? I mean, you went through a lot before we met, but I saw you activate as a healer in such a powerful way in front of my eyes. So I feel very blessed with that. But when I say that there's a divine timing when we met, how does that make you feel? Is that something that resonates?
Oh, 100%. I think that I had people come into my orbit at exactly the time that I needed that support in order to explore further who I was becoming. And I needed a safe space to do that. And so, like, just the right people came into my orbit at just the right time. And I believe that's how it works, right? It doesn't always work on our timing, but it works in like the divine right timing. And I absolutely feel that I was surrounded during a time when I really needed it.
And it's recognizing that too, right? That's the important part. It's recognizing that you are being supported, and it's really hard. And I get it, right? It's really when you're going through something. But again, if you listen to this, you will get through it. Be open to ask for help. Yeah, and I guess for me, as I've already described, any time I've gone through deep spiritual work, and whether it's in a child, whether it's dark night of the soul, it has led to exponential growth. So I guess depending where you're at, and I get it, sometimes it's really hard, but knowing that you are going to go through a rebirth, and you're going to shine your light so differently. So, Stace, what was the rebirth like for you? What was after you went through the dark night of soul? I know you're going through another phase now, but how did you recognize it? What was different for you?
I feel like I was almost coming out of the darkness and seeing the light, like seeing a little glimmer of light, a little bit of hope as I was coming out of it. And it looked like a renewal of self and a feeling of more focus and more peace, more motivation, more inspiration, a lot of goodness coming out the other side.
I love it. A lot of goodness coming out the other side, and that is, I feel like we'll probably do another episode on kind of what that rebirth looks like, right? What comes after the dark night of the soul, because it's dark night of the soul is so deep and so painful, and it can last weeks, months, or even years, depending on the depth of kind of what did you come into this lifetime to release. And it's the process of dissolving the old self. And as we talked about, it can be lonely, confusing. There's so much inner darkness that comes up. Another symptom is not wanting to be here. Maybe suicidal thoughts. It's just interesting. And just what does a rebirth look like? It's the emergence. It's being renewed. It's feeling lighter. It's having more purpose. It's getting the wisdom, the clarity. Just you're stepping into alignment into your soul's purpose. So I am just sending so much love and light out if you're going through something. Stacey, I'm just going to ask you if there's anything you want to share before we start to close.
I just want people who are going through it to know that they're not alone, even though it might feel very isolating and alone. And I want you to hang on, because there is the coming out the other side that is such a relief when it does happen. And it might take some time, but it will happen. And what are you doing in the meantime? How can you care for yourself in the meantime while you're going through this? If we can support you in any way, please reach out. We're just a message away. We're both on social media. We both have websites where you can email us. We love hearing from you. So if this episode resonated, please reach out and let us know. And if we can support you in any way, we will.
Thank you, Stacey. I couldn't say it anymore. And like we were talking about earlier, we have such a beautiful mentorship program that really is designed to guide you through this sort of shift. But again, I guess I'll finish with, know that this, whatever you're going through is fated. It's meant to happen. The time that we're in right now is just, we're in between two eclipses, and it's such an immense time of spiritual growth. And it's a fated time. It's where so many endings, so much is going, so much is happening in the world. But again, just a reminder that you're needed, you're wanted, and you're meant to be here. And that you're going through this for a reason, and you're going to shine your light so beautifully, and the world needs to feel it and see it. Stacey, thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you for this series. Actually, it feels really, really important. And like I said, if you haven't heard the previous episodes, please go there. Maybe there's some insights that you need. And to Stacey's point, we love what we get to do. Reach out to us if we can help. If anything that came through on this episode resonates, let us know. Any topics you want us to cover in the future, please also let us know too. I'm sending so much love and light out. And actually, Stacey, just remembered, I didn't ask you for any journal prompts. Any journal prompts in your heart that you want to share with our audience before we close?
First, I would ask yourself, are you going through a spiritual awakening crisis? And if you are, what does that look and feel like? And then, what are you going to do about it? I know these sound really direct, but I think sometimes with journaling, we just have to cut straight to the point. And so I want you to explore if you're going through this process. And if you are, what that looks and feels like. And then how are you going to take action? And really give yourself some time to be introspective about it. I hope this helps.
Of course it helps, Stace. I'm sending everyone so much love and light out. Thank you for joining us and being in this space. This is really a period of just to be. So I'm sending you so much love and light out, sending you the biggest hug. Thank you for allowing us to support you. And we can help, book a free discovery call and we'll take you through what we do. Sending love and light out. Bye for now.